Choose your journey. It's time. It's time to walk the path to peace. Elevate your potential and become a beacon of positive change. Your path brought you here for a reason. Dive in. Embrace the power of collective growth and unlock the masterpiece of your life. The path to peace awaits.
Ready for Gaia?
How can we be resilient in a world that's growing more volatile by the day? How can we thrive?
Don't buy into the fear. It's about waking up.
Explore the world's largest library of conscious media with thousands of films and original programs.
People all over the planet are waking up.
Gaia is ready for you.
We can adapt our lifestyle to this time of extremes.
For the seekers.
Inside, he was able to detect the fetus of some creature. It is clear by scientists that it's something different. It is not human.
The wanderers.
In ancient times, the Atlanteans were said to have an advanced technology and power supply based on crystals.
The dreamers.
My dream is to help people understand how the universe operates so that each person can find their own unique purpose within the cosmic plan.
And the doers.
Thoughts can have an effect on your brain, your body, and your life. And I'm going to show you how to rewire your mind, your heart, and your body.
For those who dare to travel their own path.
Our potential to access the supermind is no longer simply theoretical. How can we hack our history to change our future?
We are meant to learn again and again in this life that truth does indeed set us free.
Now we are proposing a new beginning, a new history for human beings.
Hey, it's great to be here with everybody, and thank you all for tuning in. And I know people are still coming. We run these things back, and so if you're catching it now live or you're catching it on the replay when it premieres on YouTube and through Roku and all those things, thank you for tuning in. It's a pleasure to spend this time with you, and thank you to Gaia. I really love Gaia and everything that they do. Go check it out at gaia.com/Sid, and you can tune in and all those things. And it's exciting to be here with you all and get connected in that way, and to continue to elevate consciousness for all of us, because it's important that we take the time to continue to do that and become stronger as humanity, because that's what it's about. It's about humanity. And as we do these shows, it's about helping people really find a way to live in peace. And I know there's many people that have said to me, peace is not possible. Well, rest assured that anything is possible in the reality. Anything. Therefore, peace is possible, and it just takes all of us to get there. And we've been doing that the last couple of weeks. We've had great shows with Lauren and Jason and Emily and Liz, and we have a great show coming up for you today. And we've been talking about and really diving into the beginning of what is the Peace Program. And it's a way for us to deliver and help everyone find peace. It's a curriculum that we will eventually have in schools, and we will help people continue to learn how to live in that way and to do that together. Because I've seen it. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in people that have come through our programs and have been connected to so much that peace is possible. It starts with you. And when you get it, then everyone in your family starts to get it, your community, the state, the nation, and we impact the world. And that's what this is about. Real impact supports everyone, and it's up to you. It's up to you to do the work on yourself to bring peace forward. And so I'm grateful for this conversation that we're about to have, as this time we're going to, every week we go into different sections of what's coming up. The first week of the month, it's about an introduction into what's coming forward as we go through the month. Every month changes because the Peace Curriculum is a 12-month program so that you can implement it into your life and not only read a book, but become the book, so that you can be wherever you go, the truly the essence of what you begin to pick up. And that's we aren't able to go through everything in these programs or in these hour talks. Yeah, we'll give you as much as we can so that you can begin to implement this. And we do it for you, because what I do, what you do, what we all do impacts everybody else. So it's up to each of us to step into that and begin to own it. And I'm excited for this conversation that we have tonight, because tonight we've got two people, my wife, Liz, who's a counselor, and Erin, who is a teacher of music in so many ways and also meditation. We've got them, and we get to see how it's this program and how this idea in this space of owning peace begins to echo into the next 7 generations to come. So I'm excited for both of them to come in, and welcome to Liz and Erin, and thank you for joining us tonight. How are you all tonight? You're both muted, just so you know.
I am fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Awesome.
Hello, hello. Great to be here, and definitely looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Awesome. And I know how Liz is, because we live in the same house. That's how it works as my spouse. Yet I haven't heard about her, all of her day to day. So she always has these interesting stories and all these different things that come up. Yet, Erin, tell us about you and what you do. What's going on in your life?
Well, thanks so much for having me, Sid. This is an incredible opportunity to have a conversation with you and Liz in this very different kind of format. So I am an instrumental music educator and meditator. And I had the glorious honor of learning about the Nahi system of meditation and, through your program. And I have, with that gift of meditation, not only did I implement it in my life, in my house, but I also have taken it to my classroom and teaching my students how to be still, because, a lot of times kids are active, but that moment to be still, and then to take that and apply it to what they're working on for music. It's just a really beautiful experience to be able to bring that forward.
Yeah, and there's so much that we're going to dive into over the next, we're going to be doing this once a month, on this topic. So there's a lot that we'll cover in that space. And Liz, over to you. Tell us about what it's like with the children as a counselor in that way. And for some reason, you're still muted. So there's that. And you may actually be, there you are. Now you're back, but you're muted. Okay, so that's not working for some reason. We're having technical difficulty, and there it is. It's rebooting for her computer. So we'll go ahead and get started into it, and I know there's a lot for her to share. So hopefully everything comes back that way. Yet when it's as you've been, you've gone through the program, you've seen how everything happens with the program with yourself. And now what I'd like to start off with is just how the program and how that's shifted you into being with the next 7 generations, with the kids the people of tomorrow.
So I want to say that this whole thing has made me a more effective teacher. I now don't worry, like as a teacher, we're managing so many different aspects of our classroom, and there's so many different personalities. And now for me, going through the peace program and going through, different aspects of Art of Peaceful Living, it's so much easier to just deliver what it is that I want the kids to learn in that day and not have to feel like, did I let this person down? Did I let that, like the weight of other people's expectations to land on my shoulders, because it just doesn't happen. Now I'm only thinking about, what am I going to bring forward and how am I going to get these kids ready for whatever concert we're performing or getting ready for. So I don't worry about those other things because I know it's going to come through and I know they're going to get it and they're going to do it.
I love it. And Victoria is saying hello. What's up, Victoria? Thank you for tuning in. And we're going to circle back and then we'll come back into that that part of the conversation with you. And Liz, welcome. Glad that you were able to pop back in. It's interesting that we're in the same house, and sometimes that back room is interesting. So you got it. Go for it. Tell us about these interesting moments you have with children in the counseling world.
Yeah, well, I was loving hearing what Erin had to share. For me, some of you may or may not know, but a fun fact is that I used to play the clarinet when I was younger. And so Erin works in the same group that I was a student in. So it's just really nice to hear you share about that, Erin, and having had such great anxiety in the practices and those shows. Just helps me kind of reflect back on what an impactful role that you're having with those children. So it's really great to hear you share that passion and know that work that you're doing. And I was also reflecting in the glitch that I was just having. I'm like, this is so just like in perfect time, because that to me is what this has been really about, elevating the next generation. The work that I've done with you, Sid, through the Peace program, but so many other, programs with yoga teacher training and meditation has really been about me finding that inner peace. And so for me, it's like, no matter what comes up, whether it's a child unexpected or the internet not working, the peace that I get to experience in those moments is really what life is about. And like just being here, being able to smile and laugh through those moments with you all is a blessing. It's like, that's what's really possible in our world. When the lesson plans don't go right, when life doesn't go as expected, we get to see that as either a gift or something that can really rock us. And so that to me is kind of what this journey of the next generation is about, is starting with me and finding that peace within that can be that ripple for those in my life to experience too.
Awesome. We've been talking about, in the introduction of this program and this process, the first thing we've talked about is the ACT and accountability, clear, and transform. And Erin, as you've just introduced the whole, the space of how things have worked for you, and Liz kind of dove into that too, and how that's opened up for the children. Share with us something that you can say, okay, how have you been able to hold yourself accountable for keeping the peace for children in your connection? Either one of you can go first. And actually, I'm going to do this because you're both polite. It happened last week. Erin, why don't you go first, and then we'll come to Liz.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So for me, something that I hold myself accountable to is to not lose my cool. And if I do lose my cool, I do it in a very like even way. Because I think kids see a lot of people just overreacting. So when I see the kids do that, I then hold them accountable to say, is that necessary? So when I am in that space of accountability, it's always from, a centered, like if I'm going to lose my mind, I just take a deep breath, and then it all just comes right back to, it always comes back to center. So that's my big accountability, is to, even when I'm mad, and not just with my students, but my own kids, because your kids, they just know every single button to push for you. So even with my own kids, to be like, don't yell at me, take a breath, and let's try again. Let's try this conversation again. So that's my big accountability, is to like not lose my mind.
Awesome. Liz, what you got?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, Erin. I know, Sid, a big teaching that you bring forward is the concept of reflections. And that's what comes to mind for me in working with children, and really any people in general, is that practice of reflection. So when I'm in a moment that I might perceive to be a challenge because of a person, I like to pause and think about, like, what is this person reflecting for me? And so I think a really simple example is children who are hyper, a lot of energy. It's kind of a common example that we might be able to think of. And so for me, when I'm seeing that, I like to take a moment to pause and find the stillness within me and see how that might reflect in another person. But that notion of reflection, I think, can be something to look at in many different ways. And that's just one example of which I use it, but a lot of other examples come to mind.
So there's this, I continue to get these interesting people that never practice peace in their life. And so, I can think of somebody right off the bat as I'm describing this space. And one thing that happens with people like that, they'll come back and say, well, that's nice in your rose colored lens and nice in your little fake world and blah, blah, blah. Yet I live in the real world. So in the real world of school, beyond the theories and, because yes, everything that I teach is a great tool, and it has to be actually executed. How does that show up at school with children that are coming from home where their parents are reactive and it's chaotic, and now you have to actually deal with this chaotic kid? And what's up, Georgette? Thank you for, we're a few of your favorite people. I appreciate that. And yet here we are in the midst of these moments with kids. How do you handle it? Because most people would not have a clue how I handle it when I'm with kids, because they think, oh, well, Sid's a pushover, he's a peace guy. No, it don't work like that. So Liz, I'd love to hear how you handled those moments with children that are, you're dealing with it as a counselor with children that are really going through tough things. What do you do?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say hey to Georgette, one of our favorite people too. So it's great to share the space with you. And Sid, when you had shared that, a couple of students in particular came to my mind, who I worked with when we were back in Maryland. And I think of this girl who was in and out of the foster care system. And she was in, I think, about 6th grade at the time, and had been through so many different therapists and people who said they were going to help her in her life. And she right off the bat said to me, like, you're just another person who is probably going to be in and out of my life. And I don't really feel like telling you anything about my life. And it was such like a raw moment that hit me. And I just had to be with her and be in the truth of what she had experienced. And to me, that's kind of what's coming up with what you've asked, is like, there's not always something to do. There's not always like a solution to some things that are going on, but being with people, and as you say, like holding and sharing space, can be really powerful. And so that moment, along with a couple others of where like I've just had to be really honest and real with people in the not knowing or the not, having a solution or not being able to fix someone's pain, but to just be able to be with them and let that peace kind of reveal itself over time, which was hard for me at first, because to see another person in pain, it brings me pain. And naturally, I want to do something about that. But over time, I realized that there's so much power in just being with people and being able to share in their stories and share in their experiences. And so that's what comes to mind with this question that you're sharing, Sid, is just kind of being in the truth of it, which for me has actually been in silence, is like, not having to be so loud and to stop a moment, but to actually just kind of be with that person through it. So that's what I've
Gotcha.
got.
Erin, awesome. Thank you.
That was really great, Liz, that you shared that. For me, what I do in those moments, because I feel like I get a lot of wing dingers for students, but that's like the nature of what I do. Like the kids that play different instruments have different, like really distinct personality types for those different instruments. And for me, the biggest thing is setting that clear expectation of how to operate in my space. So we go through a routine, and creating that routine helps the kids really function well. And then my delivery of the routine helps the kids to move through it, and then know that in that space, in that moment, they can let go of some of the other chaos. And Liz, as you were sharing, what came to mind was last year I had a student whose mother passed away, and this student was in the 5th grade, and like my heart broke for this kid. And the best thing that I could do for him in that moment was, say, let me help you. Like, do you want me to carry that instrument for you today? And those little acts of kindness just create this kind of open space for kids to know, like, it's okay here. Like, you can be emotional, but know that we're still going to do work. And that kindness and compassion really go a long way. And like, even now this year, the kid's a 6th grader this year. And when I went to the school to do the demonstration and talk about band, he came flying through the door and was like, "This is Thamert," and like gave me this huge hug. And that's not a typical reaction for a middle school boy to come flying through the door, but just, those moments of compassion really go a long way with kids. And so that I just make myself open to that, and still hold that space of peace, even when the other kids are, like in a space of not peace.
My question is, and I've been in all situations and feel good about handling and bringing any of them back to peace. Yet, as we talk this through, I really want people to get to know what you all would do. Because a lot of times I think people say, okay, well, Sid, that's you. Well, it's me because I've chosen it to be so. I've disciplined myself enough to handle any moment in peace. And so my question is, when you have some child that comes to school and they're just in some type of way, and it's not even the kid's fault. Like, kids are kids. They're imitating their examples more than they are expressing just because they express. So if they have parents that fight and argue, they will likely fight and argue. If they have parents that are more peaceful and show how to handle a situation, they do that. Yet I know you deal with things. I've been to funerals with Liz. I've been to bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs and all these different things that happen at her school that I get to go right in on. And so what I'm curious is, what are the tools that you take now and say, okay, I'm sitting with this child who just lost, especially in Liz's case, just lost their parents or one of their parents. And In some cases, I think both. What do you do now? Because those are the things that I think people need to know. Because right now, people think, oh, we need to go get medicine and go do this, that, or the other. Yet I'm saying, here's a curriculum, here's a way of being, here's an operating system that allows the future to find a place of peace so that we can get along no matter what culture we come from, you know, because we're all part of one thing, the human race. No matter what people say, it goes back to the one thing. In this body, I'm human, and everybody else is too. So I'd love to hear, you know, we have different things. We talked about stop, listen, and feel last week and the week before. And how do these things apply in the chaotic moments, most importantly? Because we have a lot of chaos in the world right now. And it's in order for us to move forward, we got to actually see and hear from the people that are on the ground with children, with real situations where some people would say, you don't deal with anybody. You know, you're both white. And I know Liz at school, it's a private school. Erin, I think you're at multiple schools. So how do you deal with that when these kids have major problems? What is some of the things, and how do you relate accountability, clear and transform, or stop, listen, and feel into the lives of these children? Erin, go for it.
So, yeah, I'd love to jump into this. So, it's been my experience that school is a refuge. And my experience has been that when kids come in and they come from a house that's a bit chaotic, they're almost grateful to be at school and then have the opportunity to come to my class, even more grateful to be like, I can just be myself because I've created a space that is just like, here we are. We're all on the same playing field in this moment. We're all learning at the same pace together. And, you know, there's no somebody's better than somebody else, that kind of situation. And should that come forward, I say, I remind them, I'm like, multiple college degrees. Let's come back to center. Let's come back to level. So, and in those, like, and if very few times have I had like something where a kid, you know, got really angry and violent. In those moments, I have to like, I will like go to the kid and it depends on how well I know this child. There have been times where I've put my hands around the child's face and they're like, can you look at me? Like, let's just take a breath for a second. But there are other times where like, I can't do that. Like I've crawled under tables with a child because he was so upset and the anxiety was just riddling his whole body. So I just climbed under the table and I just sat with him and said, you know, it's okay. I'm just here. You don't have to say anything to me, but we can't stay here. So we've got to come out. Let's get out from under the table when you're ready. Like those are the kinds of things that I'm willing to do for my students. And they wouldn't receive it if I myself was not coming to them on their level and was not meeting them where they are. So that's a big thing that Peace Program has taught me is just to see people where they are, meet them where they are, you know, like level your own expectations. This is me talking to myself. Level your own expectations and, you know, just be in that space with them. So that's really how I come forward with it. And because I come forward with that very peaceful, loving heart, then it creates a pathway for things to just open up. And the kids are more willing to receive it than the adults sometimes. So I feel like it's almost easier to reach the kids.
Awesome. Georgette said, Erin, teachers like you are highly appreciated and needed. And I agree. Well
Thank
done.
you.
Liz, what you got?
Yeah, I was looking for some sort of heart button to react to that comment. Agreed, Erin. There is so much that's coming to my mind, and I'm trying to like organize the thoughts around all of this. One, I think situations are so unique, and keeping the openness to each situation, each child, each day is really important. And with that, I would say one thing that's coming to my mind is the different models of our brain states. And for children in development, they are especially susceptible to big emotions, not necessarily understanding them and not necessarily understanding how to take care of those big emotions. And I'm looking like I'm a little behind on what I'm sharing. So definitely feel free to mute me anytime, Sid.
No,
Um,
you're fine. We only hear
okay,
it as clean.
awesome. So a big thing that we consider at our school, and I think is really valuable for parents or even really anyone who is in relationship to any adult in the world, is thinking about people being in like a survival mode. And when we're in a survival mode, that's typically when our emotions are running the moment. So you can think about a little kid who's in a tantrum. But for me, as someone who works with children, I feel like it's really important to kind of see the inner child even in adults. So it's like the person who is maybe having road rage in a moment, or it's the person who is in the grocery store and is freaking out because the line is longer than they feel like they have time for. That's not someone who's in their logical mind in that moment. And I feel like recognizing that kind of helps you, whether you're sitting with that stranger in a store or you're with your own child or even a loved one, that you can have compassion in that moment to be with that person and to help them to be able to move through that. And that might look different. That's where, like, when you're saying these tools, Sid, I feel like presence is so important because sometimes there needs to be a firm boundary. You need to say to someone, like, shape up, get it together, and get in line. There are moments, there are times that we need that. And I think as society, we especially need that. However, I do believe that there are also times where, like Erin's saying, like someone needs an act of kindness, someone needs a hug, someone needs just someone to look in their eyes and say, hey, it's okay. This is really frustrating to me too, but we're going to get through it. Whatever that might be, it's not a hit the easy button all the time to just be a human. And at the same time, it really is easy to just look at someone and be love in that moment. So that kind of comes to my mind is just like these different models of how our brain is functioning. And I think a lot of people in the world are functioning in that state of survival mode. With that being said, though, a specific tool that I come to a lot as someone who works with children in a school is similar to how you use and teach stop, listen, and feel, is the concept of a street light, the red light, the yellow light, the green light. And I always tell children like they're learning how to drive when I talk to them about this. And so they tend to feel excited because they think it's like really mature that they're learning about driving at a young age. And so reflecting on what a red light means is you have to stop. And so internally, we have to stop. And that starts with a physical stillness, which for some might mean that you have to let a lot of energy out at first. But then finding that internal stillness where you can then access the yellow light that's about like seeing what you're feeling and yielding to that. So if there is a feeling of sadness, it's about listening and taking care of that sadness. And why is that showing up? If it's anger, it's trying to figure out like, well, what's this coming up from or for? And especially with children, sometimes there's not really a reason that it's coming up. And that's okay too, but just being at inquiry around it. And then the green light is thinking about, okay, how do we move forward from hitting this pause button in the moment? And so sometimes that is a situation that happens through me or another adult, or sometimes it's something that someone is able to do by themselves in a safe place. And that can look a little bit different. But I think that analogy of kind of hitting the pause button, going through the stoplight, and just taking that time to go in is helpful.
Awesome.
I just love to
Go
like
ahead.
to come in and just add like one more little piece. I think an important piece for educators specifically, and I know this will resonate, is being able to read the room, and not just read the room, but like each individual kid. Because there are moments, like as much as I try to, or not try, as much as I am compassionate and open to my students, there are moments where like if they start to cry, I'll be like, don't you dare cry. This is not time for crying. And if you feel like you need to do that, you can go to the bathroom, splash some water on your face, and come back here. Just to give those, because sometimes you need a reset. Sometimes there's a need for it. And I want to give the space in those moments for those kids. So it's, for me, it's a balance of being able to read the room and knowing which kids can handle, that direct get in line, as Liz said.
In the beginning of the Peace program, we talk about much of this stuff coming from thought, everything coming from thought. And I'm curious, as when I go to schools, it's amazing to me how little discipline is actually in the students. Little, like, and people can say that's on the parents. I don't believe that. Even though parents definitely impact the child. When the child comes to me, it's called, we're going to get in alignment. We're here to learn. We're here to be at school. All that other stuff, I don't care what your parents did. You're on my time when I become the teacher. When I step into that role, you're on my time. So I'm curious as to how much discipline is applied in schools today, and is that actually leading kids to or away from? Because the lack of it, to me, leads away from peace. Peace is something that I've got to work at. I've got to pull to. No matter what the world is doing, I've got to be disciplined to get back to that peace. And if I'm not, then I'm going to roll with chaos. And I see that in schools, and it's something I talk to Liz about a lot, because I'm really passionate about kids and discipline, and actually knowing there are times that, that they got to be allowed to go and have the discipline to know when to go and when to be in. And I think that's an important piece, where back when I was a child, there was God in school. We said amen in a public school. And all of a sudden, when God went out to school, which God can never go out of the school. It's impossible. I don't care what school it is. God's in school because God's everywhere. So God's in school. Yet there was this space of, now as I've gone into schools and I've taught yoga in schools, I've actually taught in school. I've gone and taught camps with Liz or whatever, and all these different things. So I'm constantly still going to be around young people. And when there's a lack of discipline, that's the first thing I'm gonna start with. I don't care if they're in high school. I don't care if they're in college. I don't care if they're in elementary. I'm going there first. Like, I'm here to talk to you. And if you want to talk, look at your phone and do all that stuff, then we can just sit here till you're done. And when you're done, we'll get down to it. Now, are you all here to learn, or you just want to be undisciplined chaos that we're putting into the world? And so I'm just curious, because when it comes for standing for peace, that's a big start for me, is making sure that everybody has the discipline to own peace. So go for it, Erin, or Liz, either one of you wants to jump.
I'll jump in on this. So I will say, as someone who taught online for nearly a year and a half, that whole experience really shifted kids. And I really think that kids are still rebounding from that, because I will be in front of students and I will be giving directions, and then the kids will continue having a conversation. And I have to pause them and say, hi, you're not on mute. You are literally in front of me, and I can hear you talking, and it's rude. And so, like, giving those moments to like check and reset, because I just don't think anyone speaks to them like that. Like teachers will just say, stop talking. And now I have a unique experience where most of my classes, my largest class is 14 students, is 14 drummers, So let's keep that in mind. But but that's my largest class. And then I have band rehearsals, but I've got like 40 to 50 kids in some of my bands. But I can stand in front of 40 to 50 students at one time and still control the room. So I understand like teachers are dealing with, classes of 20 to 30 kids, and there becomes just a monotonous, like I listen to some teachers and they've got like this drone in their voice. And I'm like, man, even I'm tuning out to that. And if I'm tuning out, then I know this classroom is tuning out. And so for me, it's just keeping that, presence of expectation. And once I keep hammering in that expectation, it's easier to keep that discipline and hold the peace.
I'm going to push back with that 30 people deal because, when I was in college, there were classes that I had of 100 people. When I coached football, there were 100 players on the field, and football players have a lot of energy and want to move around. And it just comes back to discipline. Like, okay, if I'm in a college class of 300 and they just want to talk, if I'm the teacher and they're doing that, I would easily say, tomorrow we will have a test and it's going to be this percentage on your deal. The information I just covered or that you missed is what it's going to be about. Like, I'm going to make sure that people get that, period, because the lack of doing that is why we've moved further away from peace, in my opinion, than we have in my earlier years of life. And a lot of that comes back to if we're in this I'm gonna reel this right back in. So we have the president addressing a country, and we got people yelling and teaching kids how to be like that. Now I'm gonna reel that back in the school. We have to teach that. We have to make sure that, hey, Liz saw me with the camp kids that are extra ornery because they were ready to go run and play camp. And when I speak, you listen. If a teacher speaks, because there were a few of us in there, if a teacher speaks, you listen. That's it. And that, because of the way I say things, that it wasn't this dance back and forth. Hey, like, this is what I just said. If I speak, you listen. Stop. And it goes back to stop, listen, feel. Stop. Listen to the chaos going on in your head. Let's get rid of that. Now feel your way forward, because we're either going to do this together peacefully, or we're going to do this together in chaos. And I'm not doing chaos. And so for me, that goes from any age. Now a 1-year-old, that's not going to work out. Like they learn to manipulate and master people at a very young age. If I scream, I get what I want. So they learn that. So at some point, because we've trained people to be like that, we actually have to help them see another way. And it starts with you all. Like, you all and the other teachers with you, you're our saving grace. We need you. We need you to be disciplined teachers, so that when kids go on to life, it's like, oh, whoa, hold up. We don't have to deal with all this stuff. Yeah, go for it.
This is why I teach my students how to meditate, because they don't know how to be still. They don't know how to listen. They don't know how to be with themselves. And some of my schools, this is going to send a ripple. Some of my schools don't even teach health class. They don't teach coping skills. So because they don't have those coping skills, they don't have those classes, I'm the only one teaching, and I don't even teach the whole school. I only teach a small group of kids within the school. So this is why I teach meditation. And I think
that's why every teacher has to teach it. Every teacher has to teach discipline. If you're not teaching it as a curriculum, well, guess what? You're not teaching. If they're coming in and they're chaotic and you're still trying to teach over their noise in class, you're not a teacher. You're a warden, and a bad one at that. Like, think about the prisoners. Like, They don't get to just go nut job. But yet I've walked past classes and been like, dang, was that a class? Were they actually in class? Those kids, were they in class? Yeah, that's a class. Oh, that's something different right there. Like that's got to be different. We've got to actually help teachers know how to lead with discipline, teach people to be still, which very easy way to do it is teach meditation. Like get people to sit and, okay, now we're here and this is what we do next. If we start the school off like that, it doesn't have to be about God, because I know some people have this way about God, that way about God, but God doesn't care about how you do God. God is just God. Regardless of what everybody wants to say, God is still just God. It's still going to be God tomorrow. It's God right now. It's going to be God tomorrow. Like it was God yesterday. It's still just God. Now, how do we get connected? And that to me is that stop, listen, feel, accountability. At some point, now I love teachers. My dad was a college professor. My mom taught for 29 years. I love teachers. I taught. You all teach. That's why it's part of this whole platform. Yet at some point, teachers have to say accountability, clear, transform. Hold yourself accountable for a chaotic class. Clear whatever you need to, and now transform it into a new world so we get a new world. And if that means that teachers need to be paid more, then pay them more and get better teachers. Because if you pay teachers better, then you got to actually demand that they actually live up to what they are meant to be doing. Now, if you pay teachers, yeah, it is what it is. Teachers need to be paid more, and they need to be demanded to be better by getting paid more. Liz, what you got? Because I'm not sure if you're rolling your eyes or not, or if it's the glitch in the camera.
Yeah, it could be a little of both. I will say this conversation on discipline is both like making my skin crawl, having been a energetic child in a Catholic school. And I'm like wanting to look up what the definition of discipline is, because I feel like it has changed so much. I really can only speak from my experience. You know, you had asked, what does it look like in schools? And I feel like it probably looks very different across our country, and across public versus private versus parochial schools. So I can't really speak to all of that. I only speak to my experience, and I don't necessarily feel like I am an expert in this. And as a counselor, personally, it's something that I struggle with, because I see all of the reasons for the other stuff. And like personally, I feel like I think back to when I was a child, and when I wasn't acting out, it was because I was still and my mind was racing. And sometimes that was with like such big fears or anxieties, or I was just completely checked out and had no idea what was even happening in the classroom. So I feel like there's a fine line with being firm in discipline, but also having that like established space of trust and a foundation that's built on connection and relationship. With that being said, I feel like one thing that we do that I absolutely love is every day there's morning meetings in our classrooms. And just like the simple concept of turning to a classmate, looking them in their eyes and saying good morning and their name is to me like a form of discipline, because it's building that foundation of communication, of being with someone, and thinking like, yeah, we might have tons of energy. Children have a lot of energy, and it might be hard for them to sit still. But as I've grown up, especially working as a counselor, I have come to find it fascinating to see, just sitting with someone and talking with them and looking at them, the million different facial expressions that can come across just their face, and the million different, influxes in voice that can occur from someone, their body language, like what might be happening beyond just what someone is saying. So I don't know if that really relates to what you're looking for in this conversation of discipline, Sid, but I feel like for me, I kind of look at discipline a little bit different than what I experienced as a child, um, which, was the demerits, the just being reprimanded for talking too much, those types of things. And just feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm a bad person because I can't stop talking. And then having to feel like I had to repair that as an adult to know that my voice does matter and it's okay to speak. And in fact, I'm worthy to speak. And so I feel like over the past few decades, this is just my perspective, but there's been some repairing on what discipline looks like. And it's not about making people bad, but helping them to see that maybe some actions aren't helpful, and how we can be, helpful for ourselves and also helpful for a community, such as a class, which then can lead us into adults that are helpful for a community that is our neighborhood, our workforce, our.
Okay, Liz just broke up, so I'm gonna jump in here, and as I jump in, I think that people get lost when I say discipline, because I am stern about discipline. Like when I say discipline, most people take that and they run with, oh, Sid's intense, Sid is strong, Sid is blah 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 blah. All these things that they think of when they think of a football coach or a drill sergeant, of all these different things that people thought, oh, this is what Sid would be good at. When I say discipline, I'm talking about a discipleship in the meaning of, I am going to be a disciple of peace. I'm going to demand it no matter what. I'm going to demand it of myself. I'm going to stay aligned to it, and I'm going to continue. If I'm a disciple of love, I'm going to live love fully, all the way, going with it, no matter what. And I'm going to stay the course. Right now, because we have a lack of discipline, which means a lack of knowing our discipleship, we have a discipline of chaos and moments. Therefore, we just continue down a chaotic path because no one has a discipleship to something other than, oh, I need to be nice. Well, all right, what's that look like? Is it working all the time? Because the kid that is ready, in case we haven't noticed, as we look at all these things, we have suicides on the rise, killing on the rise. It's all on the rise. Yet we have yet to say, I'm going to be a disciple of peace. I'm going to make sure no matter what, when the kid comes in, I'm going to get him back to peace, no matter what, no matter what it takes. See, that's the difference for discipline with me. And Liz, you live with me. So, my discipline when it comes to healing myself, go to a doctor, they say I have something, I will instantly, I cut out sugar. Not very many people can just say, I'm doing that because I don't want to take your medicine. Not very many people have the discipline, but because they don't have the discipline, my discipline is a disciple of peace, no matter what. So I go see a doctor, you tell me this, I'm such a disciple of it. I will figure it out beyond your medicine. I will figure it out regardless of what's going on at home. I will figure it out even if you feel like you want to take your life because you're worried about where you're going next after college. See, these are all things that I've dealt with, but because I'm such a disciple of peace, I keep coming back to it. And we can act like that's anything other than we got to get people there. We have a lack of discipline towards peace in this country and in this world. Therefore, we have, when there is no discipline towards peace, we will continue to see people move in the direction of things that aren't there. And we just got into something totally new. So we're going to have to bring that back on the next episode, because we got 5 minutes to wrap this up. And I want to make sure we give you time to just say your closing remarks. So Erin, you've got velocity time at this point, but go for it.
I got this. So I'm so grateful to have been here and to have opened up this conversation in the way of how we're bringing peace forward for the next generation. So thank you so much, Sid.
Awesome. Liz, what you got?
So Misty Lee had written in the comments, perhaps self-discipline skills throughout. And I feel like that really is kind of where I started and what I take away with, that the power of elevating the next generation, I believe, starts with us as the adults and finding that peace within that allows us to bring that forward, regardless of what else content wise or if we're trying to teach character or discipline or whatever, that it really starts with like where we are at the inside. And so that's kind of my big landing point, takeaway, and starting point too. Like that's where it's all at. I think I even reflect back to when I was doing my master's program and taking all the different courses that I needed. And I felt like the program that I did with you, Sid, and learning about myself was the biggest thing to prepare me for working with other people, because I had never really taken the time to look at myself, and that opportunity to see myself and see how I was impacting others just by my listening or just by my fidgeting or picking at my nails, whatever it might have been. It was my relationship to the people that was a part of the equation. So yeah, that's my big takeaway.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. Thank you both for being here. I look forward to our next conversation in that way. And thank you. Thank you all for tuning in tonight and being part of this conversation. It's up to each of us to continue to move forward and bring things to a new level. It's how we can continue to grow. Peace is possible, and it's up to each and every one of us to do our part. This week, I want you to look at something, go a little deeper, continue to commit to peace. See how it's showing up in your life and commit to it. Have the discipline to continue to walk into that for yourself and to walk into it for all of us. If you do it, I do it, we do it, we'll have peace on earth. So thank you for tuning in. Look forward to next week. Be sure to check out Gaia.com/Sid and many tools to help you along your way. Thanks again. Peace.